Okay, I think we are live. Just waiting for the page to refresh. Yeah,
I
so
see it.
we should be live now.
Should we start?
I believe you're good to go. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kevser, and I am your host for today's panel discussion. So this conference was organized by International Support for Uyghurs. We are an independent nonprofit organization based in Montreal, Canada. ISU's mission is to promote human rights and democracy for the Uyghur people in Canada and worldwide. The organization is dedicated to supporting the Uyghurs and other Turkic people oppressed in East Turkistan. And we're doing that through advocacy projects and grassroots initiatives. And we work to magnify the voices of the East Turkistan diaspora members in Canada and worldwide. So today, February 5th, marks the 24th anniversary of the Ghulja Massacre. We are hosting this conference to commemorate this tragedy, as well as to raise awareness about the Uyghur genocide that is currently happening in East Turkestan. And we have a few special guests with us for the panel discussion. We have Uyghur activist Mrs. Rukiye Turdush, Ghulja Massacre witness Mr. Bahtiyar Semseddin, concentration camp witness Mrs. Zumret Dawut, and finally Honorable David Kilgour. So let's not waste any time and dive straight into it. I will start introducing Mrs. Rukiye Turdush. She is an Uyghur activist born in East Turkestan, and now she is the president of the East Turkestan Information Center, researcher at the Uyghur Research Institute, and advisor for international support for Uyghurs. The floor is yours. If you could please unmute your mic. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you very much for International Uyghur Support Organization organizing this webinar to memorize Ghulja Massacre. And thank you very much for Kevser and Zafar as well, who's working for this webinar. I would like to briefly talk about how Ghulja Massacre happened and how we could define the Ghulja Massacre and what was the historical background and how Ghulja Massacre is linked to today's ongoing genocide in East Turkestan. In 1994, a group of Uyghurs in Ghulja decided to revive a traditional social organization called the Meshrab. Their function was to share music and dance and to learn more about Islam and practice Uyghur culture. Meshrab multiplied quickly with 400 Meshrabs in the region with membership of several dozens at that time. And I would like to say why Meshrab was started in Ghulja, not in other places. I think it is because of geographical location of Ghulja. And the people in Ghulja is more political mind. Ghulja is located in Central Asian border. People have access through Central Asia to Eastern Europe. They have a chance to see the world outside of China compared to the people in southern East Turkestan, and the more slightly easy to go to Europe, for example, Eastern Europe. And the Ghulja has a rich soil and a water facility, better economic situation and a business facility compared to other cities in East Turkestan. So Meshrab was organized by Uyghur elites in Ghulja. It helped reducing alcohol, cigarette, and the drug use at that time, and succeeded in doing so. Because at that time, there was a widespread drug use in East Turkestan. Many families were destroyed, and we strongly believe that Chinese government is Sorry, I'm so sorry, somebody interrupted. And Uyghur elites in Ghulja at that time organized the Meshrab. It helped reducing the alcohol, cigarette, and the drug use, and succeeded in doing so. with Meshrab, because at that time there were a widespread drug use in East Turkestan. Many families were destroyed, and we strongly believe that Chinese government is behind those drug dealers. And Chinese government doesn't like Uyghurs become healthy nation, because being healthy nation will ruin China's long-term intentions of destroying Uyghur nation. So they detained Meshrab leaders immediately, and Chinese military soldiers occupied football field that Meshrab organized for young people to play football in Ghulja at that time. So next day, February 5th, hundreds of Uyghur youths marched at the street, demand the release of Meshrab leaders, but they have faced bloody crackdown. A group of 300 or 400 Uyghur youths were arrested at that time and hosed down with icy water and were kept for 2 hours in freezing cold in sports stadium in Ghulja. Eyewitnesses report that between 300 to 500 demonstrators and bystanders were arrested on February 5th, and unofficial sources estimate the number of arrests during the first 2 weeks of the Ghulja uprising vary from 4,000 to over 5,000. Arbitrary arrest and the torture immediately after the Ghulja uprising was continued for many years, and unknown number of Uyghurs were arbitrarily detained. Amnesty International documented the name of 242 executed Uyghurs between 1997 to 1999. Maybe number is much higher than that. We don't know exactly how many people are killed. I was in Urumqi at that time. I could not know what is happening in Ghulja because Chinese government strictly controlled information. After 5 months, I went to Ghulja, so I learned many things at that time. I go through so many police checks points in 2 days bus travel, and each bus stop, fully armed Chinese soldiers burst into bus, pull out Uyghurs in the bus, and they questioned all of them. I was so scared, insulted at that time. And when we arrived to Ghulja, so there was no Uyghur man left in the bus. When I arrived to Ghulja, I walked from bus station to my grandmother's home because it was not very far from the station. So I saw the streets are full of army trucks. Chinese soldiers are patrolling at the streets, and look like a war zone, even already 5 months passed. So it's very scary, it looks like. I still managed to secretly visit few friends. One of them, 3 brother was arrested. Youngest one is only 14 years old at that time. And another friend's husband and her sister were arrested also. They told me most of our male high school classmates were arrested, and some of my female friends were arrested too. I think during the Ghulja incidents is mostly young and educated ones are destroyed. So how we define the Ghulja incidents? Definition of Genocide Convention Article 2 stated that acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. So that's the definition. So many arrests, torture, and the killings during the aftermath of Ghulja incidents were intentionally aimed to destroy Uyghur nation whole or in part. Some people may define crackdown Ghulja Massacre is not genocide, but I think it is also part of China's systematic and the gradual cold genocide that had been implemented since they have colonized the region. The population was only 6% Han Chinese before China's invasion because of China's vigorous Chinese settlers policy. The current Han Chinese population now accounts for over 48% of the population of the region. China's invasion of East Turkestan in 1949 originally served to secure economic resources. However, in response to Stalin's request to share natural resources such as oil and the cotton and the gold, and with the Soviet Union, the first Chinese Communist Party state leader Mao Zedong harbored an intent to eradicate the Uyghur nation and other Turkic Muslims by forcing them to assimilate into Han Chinese ethnic groups. So the intention of genocide has predated the Chinese invasion. So I can say the oppression was, we all know that oppression was never stopped. China is invaded since China invaded in East Turkestan. Attacking Meshrab itself and Ghulja is attacking Uyghurs' existence and ethnic survival, because without Uyghur culture, without healthy Uyghur society, without leading elites and the youths and the nation, any ethnicity could diminish. This kind of slow and the cold genocide are gradually intensified and reached today's mass arrest for concentration camps, mass rape and the torture, mass sterilization, removing Uyghur children from their homes. All of these acts are fall into 5 categories of the Genocide Convention in United Nations Genocide Convention, and all of these acts are self-evident for China's genocidal intention as well. So that's how I briefly explained to Ghulja Massacre and today's situation of East Turkistan. Thank you very much. I would like to pass the speech to Kevser.
Thank you so much for giving us context and teaching us a little bit about what happened. It is very interesting. Next, we have Mr. Bahtiyar Semseddin. He is the president of International Support for Uyghurs, our organization, and he has 2 decades of experience as a prominent Uyghur activist and human rights advocate. So he's here today with us to as a witness of the Ghulja Massacre and to tell about his own experience of what happened. Mr. Bahtiyar Semseddin.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar. Today, I would like to share with you my memories of February 5th, 1997. I'm one of the eyewitnesses of this brutal massacre. Ghulja is my hometown. In Ghulja, February is one of the coldest months of the year, and Ghulja Massacre occurred at this time of the year. Today marks exactly 24 years since the incident. My brother-in-law is one of the typical victims of this massacre. He was arrested and sentenced to life in prison for participating in the protest. For the past 24 years, his life has been spent in the dark cell. His 3-year-old son is now 27 years old, and now we have the news that he has also been taken to the Chinese concentration camp. Also, my second brother-in-law was also taken to the concentration camp and sentenced to 20 years in jail. This means that this oppression has destroyed and continues to destroy many families, such as mine. During this time, I worked as a policeman at the police station in Ghulja city. A week before the incident, the entire police weapon were withdrawn under the name of the inspection. On February 4th, the day before the incident, all Chinese police officers received their weapons. However, they didn't return Uyghur police officers a weapon, saying that they were not ready. Also, all the Uyghur police officers were gathered and transferred to the city prison. On February 5th, around 330 Uyghur people took the street and called for equal treatment, religious and cultural freedom, as well as freedom of speech. Unfortunately, this peaceful demonstration faced a brutal crackdown by the unit of the armed police, who arrested all the protesters. On this day, the Chinese government handed over sticks to the armed police forces to crack down on the protesters. After all the protesters were arrested, many Uyghurs demonstrated in the front of the city police to express their anger about this crackdown. But the riot police also brutally suppressed the public. Later on that day, the Chinese government deployed the 8,660 military force to the city. That number is in China, they call like each division by number. That's one division's number. On February 6th, the relatives of those arrested demonstrated in front of the police department, asking the government to release their children, brothers and sisters. On this day, an official from Defense Ministry from Beijing arrived in the city. Then They ordered the police to open fire on the protesters and killed hundreds of people on the scenes and arrested everyone else on the street. After that, they announced a state of emergency in the city. No one can go outside from the home. During this time, we were not allowed to go out inside the prison, and we could only hear the gunshots in the prison. Like I'm not see those all like killing people on the 6th February, but we heard all the gunshots like they are shooting to our people. All the Uyghurs and other Turkic police officers, judges, and prosecutors were gathered in the city prison. The soldiers started to transfer arrested prisoners with the military trucks. 80% of those people were severely injured. Later, the soldiers brought in around 30 protesting girls to the jail. I would like to say this about our Muslim women, Muslim girls. Among those, I saw several of them lying in their blood. When they refused to remove their hijabs, they were severely tortured and their scalps were removed by force. I saw those things in my own eyes in the prison. Let me give you a little clarification about the number of the arrested prisoners, because right now in the media, so different information about the prisoners about Ghulja Massacre. In the city jail, usually 6-7 people stay in one cell. 6-7 people stay in one cell, but during this incident, 30 to 40 people were imprisoned in each cell. There was no way for them to sit or sleep or lying on the cell. In Ghulja, there are city prisons, district prisons, and each of the 8 counties, we have like 8 counties in Ili region, they have one prison. Also, each construction corps has a prison. All of those were overfilled with arrested protesters. Even in the prison where I worked, the cells were overcrowded. Those who did not fall into the cell were left in the icy cold weather without their clothes. That causes severe frostbite of their limbs in addition. In addition of those arrested, many more would face the death penalty. Soldiers were torturing arrested protesters right in front of us. That's very I cannot forget those scenes from my eyes. When we tried to stop them, the Chinese soldiers would threaten us with their weapons. We Uyghur police officers also spent days and nights in the jail for a week. After a week, I was released from jail and I got back to my station. Since then, the Chinese government has been kidnapping people involved in the protest every day. After I escaped from my country, my family member faced many difficulties. Then the Chinese police took my elderly mother and tortured and questioned her. Then I heard that the wife of my friend who helped me to get a fake passport was also severely tortured and lost her unborn child due to her injuries. Also, 6 people who were involved in my escape were arrested. My family members are facing threat since my escape. And in 2019, my 78 years old mother was taken to the concentration camp with my older sister. My nephew was sentenced to 4 years in forced labor camp as soon as he graduated from university. I have never been able to see my family members since 2001. It's been exactly 20 years today. And my father passed away in July 2019. The Chinese government didn't even allow my relatives to gather for the funeral ceremony. I was not able to communicate with my family since 2017. However, I got those news from social media, from Facebook. Someone sent it to me from Turkey. It has been 24 years that my heart never feels the same. Every time I think about this incident, I have nights without sleep. This operation has never stopped, even for a single day. We need help for all of you to save peoples of East Turkestan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bahtiyar Semseddin, for sharing this story and these horrific experiences with us. But it is important to share this so that people know that this is happening today. So next we have Mrs. Zumret Dawut. Mrs. Zumret Dawut is an Uyghur. She is born in East Turkistan, and she is a concentration camp survivor. She was rescued by her husband in Pakistan, who had a Pakistani citizenship. After escaping the United States with her husband and her children, she became an activist and has been reporting her experiences of the concentration camps and what she saw to the media around the world. So she will be speaking in Uyghur, but we do have someone to interpret in English.
Assalamu alaikum. Men Şərq Türkistan cəza lager şahidi Zumret Dawut. Men 2016 yıldan 2016 yıldan men vatandan Türk boğa anlıqdaki geplerini bütün dünya halkıga deyiş üçün neçə yıllar vaqt keçişi mümkün. Men bu bütün deydigan gepimni qısqartib sizlarga so'zlash deb berishga qaror qildim.
Hello, everyone. She says she's Zumret Dawut, a witness of East Turkistan's concentration camp. She's one of the concentration camp survivors, and since she has been released in 2016, she has many experiences, but time is limited, so she cannot tell all of her stories, so she'll be very brief today. Yeah.
Vatandagi qabahatlik ishlar dal 2016 yılının o'ttirlarida 2016 yılının o'ttirlarida boshlangan edi.
The horrible reality in East Turkestan started to unfold in the middle of 2016.
2016 yılının o'ttirlaridan boshlab Uyg'urlarni maqsadsiz holda tutib solab turmalarga solashga boshladi.
Starting in the middle of 2016, many Uyghurs were started to be arrested with no reason by the police.
Ürümçi qupquruq bo'lib qoldi. Sizda bana.
Urumqi city became empty.
Chunki hukumat Ürümçide yillarcha yashab kelayotgan Janub Shimollik Uyg'urlarni o'zining nopos turishliq o'zi tug'ilib o'sgan yurtlarga qaytarib etdi.
There were so many Uyghurs who came from the south and the north of Xinjiang, East Turkestan, to Urumqi city. All of them were forced to leave Urumqi and to their own original hometowns.
Qaytib ketishi bilanla hammasi Xitoyning tetiqsiz bahonasi, ya'ni o'z yurtingda turmagan degan bahona sabablar bilan turmalarga, lagerlarga qamaldi.
Just after they went back to their hometowns, they were all arrested and put to concentration camps because they were seen as not staying in their own hometowns.
Ürümçi naytımı qo'rqinchli jimjitlik qalg'i cho'mdi. Do'kon so'z saroylar ochadigan odammi qolmagan. Bu reallikqa ishonmay o'zimizni shaplaqlab chimdib boqqimiz keladi.
Urumqi city became a ghost town because all the shops and restaurants closed down, and people were scared to go out to the streets. We could not believe the reality. We even tried to slap our faces to see if this is reality or not.
Atraptaki urug tuqqan do'st, xulum qo'shna hammasining uyidan 2dan 3gacha hammasini kampaga solab akirib ketdi.
In each family, at least 2 or 3 people were forced to put into the concentration camps in the city.
Vatanda qilib qolgan sirtda, turma sirtida qolganlarmi hammamiz dakka-dukkaga tushdik.
Even who are living outside of the camps were not living in peace because they were so much horrified.
Vaqt o'tgan sari nurg'unlarning o'likini Xitoy hukumatı bizga o'likini, ba'zanlarning o'likini berdi, ba'zanlarning o'likini bermadi, o'lim xabarini angladik.
As time went by, many people's bodies were returned to their families, but many other who were killed just disappeared without any reason.
Shundaq bejirim insonlarning saq kirkitib o'likini chiqqanligini ko'rib, ularga ich og'ritsak yoki uyiga ularning afsus qilish uchun uylariga kirsakmi biz jazolandik.
Even visiting those people whose family members were disappeared was seen as a crime, so we were not able to visit those people who lost their family members to the concentration camps.
Hattoki ayol ikkisini tang turmaga solansa, bolalarga tamoq bersakmi biz jinoyatchini qo'llaganlik deb hisoblanib, bolalarga tamoq berolmaydik. Eng oxirida bichar bolalarni igicha qisiz qoldi deb Xitoy hukumatı bolalar lageriga olib ketishdi.
Many couples were also put to the concentration camps, and their children were left at home. So even taking care of those, we tried to take care of those children, but that was seen as a crime, so we could not do so. At the end, those children who were left without parents were also sent to children's camps. Actually, they were state-sponsored orphanages.
Xuddi yuqoridan Uyg'urlarni butun qurtitinglar, nasldan qurtitinglar, turmalardagi odamlarning tugab turmada solingan odamlarning o'likka o'ltirib bo'lgandan keyin yana qolgan sirtliklarni akirib o'ltiringlar degan buyruq tushgandek, xuddi bizga o'limningki tahdidi, bizga o'limga xabari qachon o'lim xabarimizni saqlab o'ltirgandek sirtliklar mashinada o'ltiribdik.
We felt like the Chinese government ordered the police to wipe out all the Uyghur population. We were so much horrified that we could not stay at peace even in our own homes.
Elib ketilganlarning hammasi gunohsiz, ularning birdan-bir gunohi Uyg'ur bo'lganligi.
Those who were taken to the camps were not criminals. They were innocent. Their only crime was being Uyghur.
2018 yılı 3. ayının 31. günü Uygurlarning tepaga tushgan qora soya mangami tushdi.
Qaysi ay dediniz? Which month?
2018 3. ayının 31. günü.
In March 2018, I was also taken to the concentration camp, and I also started to experience the horrible fate that many other Uyghurs were facing.
Tuyuqsiz saqchiqandan kelgan telefonni topshirib elib yuragim ansiz so'qib ketdi.
One day I received a letter from a police station, which indicated that I would be taken to a camp.
Tez saqchiqanaga kel, xuddi o'lim xabarim kelgandek qo'rqib ketdim.
They asked me to immediately come to the police station.
Балаларымға чидымға алда bir qarab qo'ydim. Bilime başqalarımı muşunda chaqirtilgan bilan qaytib kelmedi.
I was so much terrified because I knew that that was the sign that I was going to be taken to a camp, because I knew many other people would they may have also received such invitations from the police station.
Endi kelsem mening qachon uyga qaytib kelganligimni bilmaydim. Hem tegiga yetib olganman.
I immediately knew that I would never know that when I would be coming back home, and I knew my fate was very bad.
Uçaqda kichik qizim 5 yoshga kirgan. Naytim tatlıqtı.
At that time, my youngest daughter was 5 years old.
Yüzümden sınırmağa okumak deymen. Şu kızımga kıymağın aldı öyle çıkıp gitti.
I could not leave my daughter because I felt like I would never see her again. Like I felt so bad, and during that time, leaving my family.
Saqçıxanaga kirdim, lam ola mening telefonumni tatib elib, saqçıxanning o'rindig'ida o'tag'izib qo'ydi.
When I entered the police station, they immediately took away my cell phone and asked me to sit down.
Telefonumni boshda tatib elib, meni yarastı uyiga olib kirdi.
After taking my phone, they asked me to go into underground.
Yarastı uyiga kiriblam shunchalik qo'rqinchli bir manzara ko'z oldimda turadi. U bo'lsinmi, butun uydan yig'ilgan Qur'on kitoblar, Uyg'urcha kitoblar, yerlarda turadi, sul yo'qoltilarni teshib tashlashdi.
Yeah, I entered the basement and I saw so many books, so many Uyghur books, so many religious books, Qurans were laying on the ground.
Atlab Xitoylar uzun koridordan atlab kitoblarni atlab o'tib mengatadi.
The Chinese police were stepping on those books. They didn't care if these books were sacred or not. They just didn't care.
Saqçıxanning yarasida uzun bir koridor, u koridorda bir qancha mishundaq so'roqxona bor ekan. Meni ash Qur'on kitoblar bor, shu yerda tashlangan so'roqxonaning oldidan temir eshikni ochib, meni mishunda temir o'rindiqdan birga o'tag'izib qo'ydi.
Yeah, I saw many rooms when I was in the hallway, and then I think they deliberately made me sit in front of a room which was full of religious Islamic books.
Ularning qo'lda oldin tayyorlangan mening telefon urush kirgan chiqqan xotiram, bankning hisobotga kirgan chiqqan xotira, yana kelib sayohatga chiqqan butun xotirlarim oldida batdi ularning.
They checked my cell phone and they identified all the information from my cell phone, including my bank accounts, my travel information, and all the other personal information.
Ular hammani bir boshdan surishti qildi. Sana telefonni kim urdi? O't kirgan telefon chiqqan telefonning hammasi mening yo'ldoshimning Pokistonda turib men urgan telefonlari.
They asked me about my phone conversation history, asking about my husband's phone, which was coming from Pakistan.
Banka hisobotimni tekshirib, yo'ldoshimning og'inasi sappagan 4600 yuan pulning kirgan hisobotini ko'rib, sana Guangzhoudan bir chet ellik pul sapdi deydi. U ya chet eldan kelgan pul emas, jiq pul emas, 4600 yuan.
My husband's friend was doing business in Guangzhou city in China, and he sent me 4,600 RMB. And then the police said somebody like a foreigner sent you money, this is illegal. Why a foreigner was sending money to you?
Ana deyin ki mening pasportumnunki hisobatini ko'rib sen nurg'un davlatlarga chiqsa, sen nima uchun boshqa davlatlarga chiqding deydi. Boshqa davlatlarga chiqqan hammasi sayohat idorasi bilan chiqqan. Uning isbotimi Bahtiyar sayohat idorasida olib qo'ygan. Chunki mening oldimda sayohatga chiqqan, chet elga chiqqanlarning hammasi tutib ketilganligi uchun men shaxsiy chet elga chiqmadim deb sayohat idorasi bilan chiqqan sayohat isbotimni tayyor qilib qo'ygan. Men dedim yo'ldoshimga danglar aytib bersin. Men o'zim chiqmadim chet elga sayohatga. Mushu sayohat idorasi bilan chiqdim dedim.
They looked at my passport pages and said, "Oh, you went to so many countries. You went abroad, and why?" And I said to them that I made these travels because you gave me passport, and also I didn't go abroad through my personal routes, because I used some travel agencies. Through some travel agencies I went abroad, so this should not be seen as illegal. But I knew that many Uyghurs were taken to the camps because they went abroad. Even they went abroad through government sponsored, government sanctioned travel agencies.
En ahırda sorulgan sualı dedi ki sen Pakistanlık toyuqsa senin yoldaşın seni dinni okudamdı, dinni ügdamdı, İslam diniga bekrak seni ügettimi, 5 vakt namaz ötedemdi. Muş 3. balını köp perzentlik bolsan, sana muş İslam dininde köp perzentlik dep barmı, muş köp perzentlik buluşlarının dinde sabap mı? Muş 3. balını nemi üçün tuğdun? Nemi sebepten tuğdun bu 3. balını? Senin yoldaşın sana besim saldı mı? Sizlerning dinde mustaq köp farzand bu savab buldu degandek narsani yo'ldoshing sana dedimi? Bu savolni so'rdi.
They knew that my husband is from Pakistan, so they asked me whether my husband was teaching me Islam, and if he was asking me to pray 5 times, and then they interrogated about my third child, but asking me whether having a third child or having more children is good in Islam, is promoted in Islam, and whether I wanted to have more children.
Bir kecha so'roq qilingandan keyin qo'limni mushu har bir qitim eng oxir qitim yo'ldoshingninki 3. farzandlik bo'lishingdagi maqsad nima? Nima sababdan sizlarning dinda mushta ish bormi deb men uningga endi men undaq o'rgatmadi, hech qanday din tarafdan meni yo'ldoshim o'rgatmadi degan sirk qo'lim bilib tutamni ko'ngilni toza chingitimiz. Bir qitim chingitdi, ikkinchi qitim chingitsa mening qo'lim uzilib ketdi qo'yadi. Yilimi birinchi qitimlik chingitishdan qo'limning bilikini shunchalik bardosh beramidim, oxiri bir qitim o'birni qilsam, men qo'limni ikkinchi qitim qilgan desam bo'shamikin deb o'birni qilaman desam, birinchi qavat yarasining uyidan ikki soatga qarab turdi ekanmiz. Yo to'saq yeri yo'q. Mushundan siydigan yeri bor ekan, qo'lingizni cho'qim tomdagi ko'yziga tamda bir ko'mir bor ekan, bu soqqa chetag'liq. Ko'mir bilan ko'yzini o'rtasiga turib meni siydaydi. Ishga erkicha qarab turibman.
Yeah, this is about torture. So first they still interrogated about her third child, asking, okay, why did you have your third child? Because it's illegal. And so according to your religion, so you wanted to have your third child. So your husband, yes, so your husband forced you to have your third child. Is it true or not? And then they interrogated her, making her to sit on a chair and squeezed her hands using some instruments, and even she was asked to have her number 2 just sitting there in front of several male police officers. That's one of the tortures she faced.
Ben dedim ben ayal kişi bulmasam hakkında sen çıkıp desem çıkılınmadı. Senin bir kıtının seyişin için ben işten çıkıp ketken ayal saktın çakırıp ekilemdim de bizim de karap durdu.
Yeah, so she said that in front of male officers, police officer, how can I urinate? So it's not number 2, it's number 1. So she asked if some female officers would be in front of her to watch her, to do her number 1, but they said no, they didn't allow her to have female police officers in front of her, standing in front of her.
Bu so'roq jarayonida necha qatim qo'ldagi qog'ozlar bilan yuzimni urib baqdi, chaplaq qilib sapaqdi, kaltak qilib urib baqdi. Bir kecha meni qiynagandan keyin atdiganda meni pek atdigan endi soat 6lar bo'lgan bo'lishi mumkin. Atdiganda bir saqchi mashinasini ustiga atdi meni. Saqchixonaning ustiga yarasdi uydan. Chiqsam bir saqchi mashinasi saqchixonaning oldiga kelib to'xtadi. Men bu saqchi mashinasiga kelganda men bilib oldim, men bugun meni qo'yib atmaydi, to'qim bir apırdıqaligini bilib oldim. Bu yerdagilarmi yo'qdi talada. Ya meni saqlab turgan. Shuning bilan ashadillar meni atdigandilar. O qo'llarda mushu so'roq xotinlarim ekan dedim, mening materialim bor ekan dedim, bir material saqlangan qog'oz mushu materiallar bilan meni mashinaga silib atmangdi.
They interrogated me all night without letting me go to sleep. And after midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning, I saw a car stopped in front of the police station, and I saw my materials in the hands of some police officers. I just knew that they were not going to release me. I was going to be transferred to somewhere else.
Meni udul doktorxonaga apiribdi. Doktorxona ekan, o qarasam ichida saqchi kiyim, teshida doktorxonaningki doktorning kiyimi. Hatta shapkasimi saqchining shapkasi. Egiz tam men uni harbiy doktorxonasi deb o'yladim. U yerga borgandan keyin echinishli ko'rinishlarni sizlarga tasvirlab bersam hozir cho'qim yig'laysizlar. Qeyri xotin, yosh qiz bola hammasi bo'lib, mush xotirasiga har bir jinoyatchi aslan opagan atalmış Uygurlarning og'zidagi jinoyatchi deb opagan Uygurlarning hammasining yanında bir ayolning qishda 2dan saqchi. Her birimiz apaga 2 saqchi yanında turibdi o'sha qurolliq. Biz birdan yetkilib apirib, biz doktorxona ekan u barmoq izi, ko'zimizning nuri, chiroyimiz, ovozimiz, hamma narsamizni oldi. Ayollar tekshirishi qildi. İçimizga bir narsalarni silib apparat tekshirdi. Ashunda qilib yurib, biz adamning jihligidan, Uyg'ur ayollarining jihligidan o tekshirishni bo'g'itilik tushdan soat 7ga qoldim. Yana qarag'ib ketdi tala. Ashuncha darajada. Atdiganda apagan yerda doktor tekshirishda ha kesh qarang'i tushlik vaqtda birdan tekshirishlarni o'chayotgan jihliga adamning jihligidan ashunda tekshirishlarni qilib kesh soat 7da meni turmaga apirib, ashu kampaga apirib berdi.
In the morning, 6 o'clock, we went to a hospital. I saw this hospital, and I immediately knew it was not the ordinary hospital. It's we know. I knew that it was a very special hospital. I saw many police officers in front of the hospital, and I saw many Uyghur women queuing there in order to be receiving checkups by the doctors, special doctors. So the crowd was so big, and from 6 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock, I stayed there because I had to wait till my turn would come. So around 7 o'clock in the evening, I would be able to come back to the police station. And during the whole day, I saw that women were checked. The doctors checked everything about our finger prints, our iris scans. Iris scan. They did iris scans, and they also took our voice samples and all kinds of different tests they had on us.
Keşke bütün tekşürüşler tükkende meni bir maşinaga saldı yana meni apaga saqçılar şu doktorlarning bütün tekşürüş neticeleri çıktımken şunu bir lipapaga çoğ lipapaga saldı meni akaga saqçılar yana maşinaga silip yana apmağdı menanti taxminan 1,5 saatda olmağdı qo'yman ketyapmiz meni nega apmaganini bilmayman hech narsani beshimda qora qalti bor apaganda mashina apagan hattoki doktorxona tekshirish ketgandimi yana shu qora qalti bilan meni apmandi bilmayman nega apmandi yo bir yak apirib etyapmidi yo kun bitamdi yo nima ish qildi bilmayman ketyapman shuning bilan shu ayollarniki lagerga apirib apadi akirib ishikdan kirgan petida meni kiyim amlashtirsa deb bir yak akirdi aşağıda ishga er kishi batdi meni kiyimni sal amlashtir deb aşağıda bu er kishi tursa xotin kishimi bor ishga er kishimi bor man dedim man qanday amlashtirmay mala chiqib tursin deganni qilib man yolurgandek qilib mushlabayt amlashtiraman desam hozir kiyimni jitidi mushpadimda sira kiyimni jitidi nimasa er kishi xotin kishi deb tanlab ketsa Salamsa erkilmem ya da bulmuş maaşkı erkişi kimonu jitkızıtmam dedi. Şununla erkişi bayar birinci katınlık benim erkişi bayar da kimamlaştırğunum.
I didn't know where they took me because I was wearing a black hood and blindfolded. I didn't know where I was taken to, and it took like 1.5 hours at least to get to a concentration camp. And when I arrived at the destination, they asked me to undress in front of the male officers, and I said why I couldn't do that, and they told me you shouldn't ask this. You should do whatever we ask you to do. And I saw many Uyghur women there in the same situation as I was in. So that was a very horrible situation. I feel I can't say anymore about this.
O yerda meni meni akaga saqchilar turma saqchilarga topshirib berdi. Shuning bilan meni turma saqchilari shu men yotgan hozirning ichiga olib kirdi. O ishni ochqanti xuddi hojatxona bir sisiq bir hojatxona shunchalik puraqchilik uni ichi. Ishni ochib hatto saqchilar og'zini etib olib turib meni ittirib kirgizdi.
They took me to a cell and opened the door, and when I just opened the door, I felt the smell. The smell was so bad, and even the police who took me to the cell, they blocked their mouths because of the smell. It was not a place where a human being can live. So I immediately knew it was not. It was a very bad place. I felt so bad.
Onun içine kirgandan keyin meni shu kuni akirgan vaqtida meni bugun kechachi jibar qilma deb ashadida bu jibar qil degan nima degan gapdi dedim. Men tushunmadim uni. Chunki men bir kecha u yerda so'roq qilindim saqchixonda bir kun ayada doktorxona tushdim. Meni haliqi kechachi qopma yot degan gapga u. Men kirdimlam u yoq qarsam bir put, bu yoq qarsam bir put. Hamma bichar ayollar yonchisiga yotqil turibdi. Yerimi o'ra, yerim yetayotganlarmi bunday o'ngda ya mayoq o'rilib yotamaydi ekan o'ng tarafni bosiz o'ng tarafni besib yotadi ekan so'l tarafni besib yotadi ekan shunchalik puraqchilik uning ichida obernisimi yana ash saqchixonaning yarasida uydagiga o'xshash ash to'rt atrofda hammasida apparat bor yana ash oberniga siz nimani qildingiz nimani chiqardingiz hamma narsa ko'rinib turdi ekan pichirlama ortiq gap qilma kimga gap qilsang hammani ko'rib tura olamiz sen bek ig'ir jazolanib ketsan undaqda deb aşağı deb kirdiğin vaxtida aşağı dedi. Sen maslashmasang sen bundan keyin bu yerdan chiqolmaysan. Cho'qim biz nima desak shuni qilishing kerak. Ya deganni yeyishing kerak. Atrofdagilar bir og'iz gap qilmasliging kerak deb meni kirgizdilar. Shuning bilan haliqi 2 kun avar tatib haliqi yarasli uydimi yig'lab, doktorxonadami bir kun yig'lab, shu doktor saqchiqani bag'anda tatib turumga kirganchilik vaqti ichida menga bir qitim suv yoki tomoq bermadi, hech nima bermadi.
When I was entering the cell, they asked me not to speak to anyone in the cell and just rest. I saw many women in the cell. They were sleeping. They were lying down, and most of them were sleeping on their sides, because it was very crowded and it was so smelly inside because and the toilet was inside and the sanitation was so bad. And it's a horrible picture I was seeing there.
Bütün ayollarning badallari qichishqa qo'yib ketibdi, tamirat ko'p ketibdi. Mushu yara bo'lib ketibdi, qo'zoqlaridan tortib qo'llariga tilik. İştanning eg'i ketib, ishtonning og'zi taraf. Steve salamda so'g'a eshib ketib, biz Uyg'ur ayollari shunchalik pokiz to'q. Hatto kiygan kiyimlarini ko'rib hayron qoldim. Hammasi ishtonning eg'i qattiq ashta bu. Cho'ng opashlar bor, kichik qizlar bor, 15 yoshli qizlar, 16 yoshli qizlar bor. 72 yoshli ayollar bor.
All women, the women were all ages, 72-year-old women. Even I saw a 72-year-old woman staying in that cell. The hygiene was so bad and they were so smelly. They had like skin problems. So it was like a disease-ridden kind of situation. I can't imagine. I can't describe the situation in that cell.
Türmege kirib ertesigilam aşu Uyghur ayol aşu türmedeki ayollarga men kirib ertesigil boğa iş muşu xuddi jiningni kesilinge şifa tapıdı lekin jiningni qiynaydı degandek bir doğruni aş mahbuslarning kiyimini ustidilan burun bir ziraatlik dar çeçidigan ilqimda yalırıp turib ziraatlik dar çeçidigandek bir dar çeçidigan adamlar xuddi muşu virusdan saqlanadigan aq kiyimni kiyib kirgandek kirib aş kiyimning töpüden aş ayollarning aldığını qildi keynini qildi aş bichar ayollanmıştı turibdi turgandekin hammasining badaniga dar chechqandekin u bir yaraning ichiga kirib shunchalik echtirdikan joyida turib ilqi bicharlar degan taqlatdi aş chiqiradi vaqiradi u xuddi bir kislota badanining ichiga kirsiqqanda bo'ladi bicharlar shunchalik qiynaldi. Men yan kirgandekin men undan eslab bo'lmadim. Men u bicharlarning chiroyidan joyida turib taqlashtirdim. Men ularning haqiqatan bek qiynalayotganligini.
The women were sprayed some kind of medication in order to make them feel better, but the women, I could see that these women had been staying there for a long time because their clothes were so stiff. They became so stiff. The clothes became so stiff because of a long time without changing. So when the medication was being sprayed onto them, they were screaming, jumping because of pain. I could see that because I was new. I didn't have that kind of painful experience, but I could see they had a lot of pain.
Doğrularını künde bir tal doğru verdi. O darını ağzımızga sap bulup yemedimi dep bir qatımlı quluğu kiydigan bir xil palay var ki şu darını içeride üstüde aylık palayını quluğu tıqıdı olam her birimizning ağzıga muş astıga üstüge qulunu muştaq qo'ydi yemedimi ya tilini asfaltam aldık bu dep. Künde darı verdi künde. Hemmesiga. Andaki ağzımızga qulunu tıqıp tekşireydi.
Each day the women were forced to take some kind of medication. And they were checked whether they really swallowed the medication or not.
15 günde bir qatım kan alıdı. 15 günde bir qatım.
Each 15 days, they had blood test.
Men 2 ay yattım. 2 ay içinde 2 qatım belikimge ukulur deyim. Men nima ukul kelgini bilmeyim. Hazırgacha.
They gave me some kind of injection in 2 months, 2 times. I didn't know what kind of injection that was.
Kunde bir yuğan zalının içinde muallimni bir qapazdak narsa içine solab qo'yib, bütün ayollarni yedilam soğuk yedi otta quzib, mush yükünüp putimizni başta qo'limizni, başta yükünüp oturup qo'limizni başta qo'yimiz. Ko'rsatamiz saqchilar bor. Muallim bizga shu Xitoycha dars o'tadi.
Our teacher in a camp was teaching us staying in a cage because of the protection, and we were sitting on the ground without any chairs or the desks. We were learning Chinese propaganda from the teacher.
Ders tökkendeken her birimizni birden chiqqichilik Allah bamo degine deb aşında dersxonadan yanida vaqtida ashta degizdi. Endi boshda kirgan vaqtida bu bek zo'r bir gapkan bu. Bu yo'q deyishchi, bu biz musulmonlar uchun bek zo'r gapkan. Hamma Uyg'ur ayollari birinchi qatam mushu tayoqni yemay qolmaydi ekan. Hech kim yo'q demaydi. Bek chig musulmon ekanmiz biz. Tayoqni yeb tursimi, urib tursimi biz hech qaysimiz yo'q deymiz. Kimni bo'z yo'q demaydi qarang. Kirganlarni hech qaysi yo'q demay ashunda tayoq yedi.
Which day when the class was over, we were asked if Allah exists or not. So it was so hard for us to say no, Allah doesn't exist. So we faced so much torture in the beginning because of our faith. We couldn't say, we couldn't betray our faith.
Ashta tayoq yedi. Ama ahırda kundi kechda saat 9dan 8dan 10gacha bo'lgan vaqtida mushu 3 soat mushu butunlay eliqi bir narsani yodlaydigan berdi Xitoycha. Shu chaqda ancha-muncha biz sibirsimizni pichirlasha olamiz. Shu burun kirganlar menga dedi, unda demang, hargiz demang. Allah'ın içinizde bilen çokum yoktan bu müstahak yeysiz. Mengü yeysiz. Bizler dilimizde Allah. Siz devirin Allah yoktur. Bu Xitaylarının diyen getirgenler. Allah'ın Xi Jinping'e siliştirdi. Allah bamu Xi Jinping bamu diginerdi. Oyla pek Allah'ın Xi Jinping'i siliştirdi o Xitaylar.
Only at night, from 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we could speak to each other, whispering very low, in a very low voice. Only that time we could say that let's be resilient. Our faith should be strong, and let's just say Allah doesn't exist. Otherwise, we will be facing torture. So that was the kind of experience I had in my first days in the camp.
Men bilen birga yatgan mushu bizning mahaldagi masalan bir qattiq dinga itoat qiladigan mushu ayollar o'lib ketsa yug'adigan mushu ayollarni ishini qiladigan bir otimiz bor. Bir kunisi shuni kechida olib chiqib ketdi. Olib chiqib xil yerim kechida ya'ni aka tashlab qo'ydi. Kechida yerim kechida. O ayolning badallaridan mushu urilgan tayoqning izlari ko'rinib turadi. Shuni o günüsün so'rayamadik, chunki biz birsimizdan gap so'ramaymiz, nima ish qilganini bilmaymiz. Ashunda vaqirab, jaqirab, eliq bir narsa gaplaydigan vaqtida eliq ochiq dediki, meni qip yalang'och qo'yib, esib qo'yib urdi. Ana degan sizlar Uyg'urlar, musulmonlar namoz o'taysizlar-ku, buni namozni tarat olasizlar-ku deb bütün badanimni siydi.
A religious woman among us was taken to a different place at night, and she came back with a lot of wounds on her body, and she said that she was interrogated. She was asked, to deny the existence of Allah. And the police there asked us to worship Xi Jinping instead of Allah, and that Allah doesn't exist. You should not believe in Allah. You should believe in Xi Jinping.
To'la akşamisi kızlarını açıp gitdi. To'g'rami shu hozir guvohlik berayotganlarning guvohligi 100% to'g'ri. Akşamisi açıp gitdi. O kızlarning nega açıp ketganligini so'roq aytamdi yoki nima ish qilgan ekatligini bilmaymiz. O kızlarni kirgandan keyin shunchalik mayus holda ya o kızlarni so'roq qilib javob berolmay tayoq edimi yoki kecha necha xitoyning ostida qoldimi biz bilmaymiz uni. Hech qanday birisi-birimizga gap qilib qo'ymaydi. Biz tushunmaymiz. Hatta almashtirib turdi. Bugun baqizlarni adamni Mariyaga. Bugun achib ketgan qizlarni shu kunisi bizning yotoq bizning qo'zning ichiga akirmay yana bir yerga yo'tkaydi. Endi bir nim bo'lganda o'tganiga u qizlarni o'tirib atgan ketdimi va yoki boshqa so'roqxonaga olib atdimi hech nimani bilmay qolamiz. Lekin bu Xitoylarning jinsiy tajovuz qildig'ini 100% achib ketganlarimiz shunda chiroyli o'moq kichik qizlar.
Many young women were taken out of the camp, and we would not know where they were taken to. And at night they were taken, and in morning they were coming back. So we know that the sexual harassment, sexual abuse was widespread in those camps, and all of these young women were taken by force. So sexual abuse widespread. Yeah.
Zumret dada axırsını bir tushirasınız hamda au nim questionlar tushir.
Mening yo'ldoshim chet ellik bo'lganligi uchun nurg'un bedel to'lab meni turmadan lagerdan chiqoldi. Men chiqoldim, lekin nurg'un qarindoshlarim, do'stlarim, millatim, aziz samollarim uning ichida qoldi hozir shu Xitoyning ig'ir bostirishlarida.
She says she was able to be released because her husband was from Pakistan. She was so lucky, but so many other women in those camps have been facing this horrible situation, and they need to be saved by the world.
Türmeden chiqqandan keyin meni majburiy bola tug'mas qilib, meni bog'dirish operatsiyasi qildi. Biz rozi bo'lmadik, qilmaymiz desak, sening yo'ldoshingni kirgazmaymiz. Sen chiqolmaysan deb meni bog'dirish operatsiyasi qildi.
Before she was released, she was sterilized by force and police.
Men 6 ay turib, 2 ay turmada yetib, 6 ay lagerdan chiqib, 6 ay o'zimning sudikini tutolmadim. Shunchalik darajada ig'ir to'g'im eshib, shu börekni sovuq o'tib ashta bo'lib ketdim.
She says she has become so much sick after coming out of the camp.
Bergen doğru okullarının ta'siridanmiki mendan odat to'xtab ketgan. Men Amerikaga kelib, men endi doktorxonaga bordim. Men gapning uchini qilsam, bugun men doktordan pek yaxshi xabar olmadim.
She says she went to hospital today, see doctor, and she didn't have good news from the doctor.
Ayol kishida odat kemis bo'lmaydi ekan. Odat kep bo'lmay bugun oxirgi natija chiqdi. Endi kelar hafta mening butun bolayotganim qirg'in. Ayta bir operatsiya o'tishdi ekanman. Cho'qim kelar oyda ya. Mushu oyning oxiri ya kelar oyning 5ida mush operatsiyani qilmasam mening rak bo'lish ehtimolligi 90%.
Doctor says that her situation is very bad. Next month she should have an operation. Without that operation, her chance of getting cancer will be 90%.
Biz Uyghur ayollarının 90% mush kunni tatiyotimiz ya uzuk salamiz ya bolayotgani bog'dirimiz. Bizning o'zimizning a'zolari bilan yashag'imiz bor, o'zimizning sog'lom badallarimiz bilan yashab, erkin nafas og'imiz bor, xohlagancha to'qqimiz bor bizning.
She said that Uyghur women should own their own bodies. They should have the freedom to have the ownership of their bodies, and they need to have the freedom to have their own children. This is the basic freedom for each human being.
Dünyada ayarlar birleşmesi yok mu? Dünya ayarlar birleşmesi. Ne biçim biz Uygur ayarlarını kurtulduramayızlar?
There are human rights organizations in the world, but she is asking about the existence of women's organizations that can save women like her.
Zumret aka ko'p rahmat bugun kelganingizga, ham so'zlab berganingizga. Rost ko'p rahmat. Endi o'zingiz abim shunba degansiz, endi chiqsangiz bo'ldi, ishongiz qilsangiz bo'ldi. Ko'p rahmat. Thank you very much, Mrs. Zumret, for your witness, for telling us about your horrific stories and your experience. It's very heart-wrenching to hear, and we haven't even experienced any of these, so it's thank you so much for your courage and joining us.
Rahmet.
And next we have Honorable David Kilgour. He is a former minister and member of parliament. He represented the South East Edmonton in the House of Commons from 1976 to 2006. He graduated from the Faculty of Law at the University of Toronto and later completed a doctorate in constitutional law at the Faculty of Sorbonne in Paris. He was also a Crown Attorney and constitutional advisor for the government of Alberta before entering the Parliament. Sir David Kilgour, I will give you the floor. Oh, your mic is muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to thank everybody for putting this on, to the International Support for Uyghurs for putting this on. And there's so much that we've heard, and what we just heard, I don't think any of us will ever forget. I don't know whether people, you and other people watching this tonight, have seen that the BBC 2 or 3 days ago had on some similar evidence to what we just heard from women victims of camps, talking about torture and rape. And the good news from that, I think, is that it seems that the government of Britain and the government of the United States saw these items, which are broadcast, I guess, every part of the free world, and they have had a significant impact, I believe, on what the policies are going to be towards the government of China in terms of the Uyghur community. I've been to, I don't know whether everybody or anybody has been to Auschwitz in Poland. It's a place everybody should visit. And what I was hearing just now reminds me of the kinds of things that went on there. And it's simply, it's unimaginable that in the 21st century, any government anywhere on the face of the earth could be treating their own people, innocent, peaceful people, the way the government of China is treating the Uyghur community in East Turkistan. I thought what I might do to save us a bit of time is I've got some conclusions that I think what we've just heard tonight would I think the government of Canada and other governments should be doing. And if I may, I'll mention some of them, and then hopefully we can discuss some of them, and more importantly, what's just been said. One of the things I think Canada should do is that, I'll have to put on my glasses, the print is small on this. Canada and all rule of law nations should take all opportunities to condemn publicly the Beijing regime on its ongoing persecution of prisoners of conscience, particularly, of course, Uyghurs and other minorities in East Turkestan. Canada and all of the democracies should join the countries that already ban travel to China for transplant surgery. No deal with a murderous regime that regularly kills its citizens or tortures them. or throws them in prison and force them to work as forced labor is worth the paper on which it's written. Any deal with China on any matter must include an insistence that the barbaric practice of we've just been hearing about and organ pillaging stops, and that people can check to see verifiably that it's happening. Canada should apply its Magnitsky laws and other sanctions against any Chinese government official known to be involved in the persecution of the Uyghurs. As we've just heard, anybody in that camp should be subject to a sanction by Canada's Magnitsky laws and other nations as well. If we would show more commitment to our own values, the despicable sorts of things we were just hearing about might soon end. A couple of more. Canada should, like Australia, adopt a foreign interference law to stop Chinese officials from interfering with Canadians anywhere across this country. All United Front organizations posing as community groups in Canada and elsewhere should be registered as foreign agents in Canada. Fortunately, the mood in Canada is changing, as I'm sure you all know. Even before the pandemic hit Canada, 90% of Canadians said they distrusted the government of China. It has to be even higher than that now, given what horrible things that are happening in East Turkistan and in organ pillaging in China. So I thank all, particularly the last witness, of course, for what the horrors that she's just relived speaking us today, and I hope that all Canadian members of Parliament and senators can see this what she just said and what the others just said. It's beyond comprehension. This could be happening in the 21st century. Thank you very much. Merci bien.
Thank you so much, Mr. David Kilgour, for these suggestions and as well as your comment. So we do have some time before we end, and I will be taking some questions. So if you have any questions to our guest speakers, please just write it in the chat box on our YouTube channel, and I will be reading them out. I will give you a few minutes. If you have any questions? Yes. Maybe just while we wait, I have a question. So this is more maybe towards Uyghurs, but obviously Mr. David Kilgour, you can answer as well. How do you deal with this trauma of, knowing that this is happening and feeling hopeless, yet, being in a country where you do have the freedom of speech and we do have basic human rights? How do you deal with that, and what should you do? I don't know if that made sense.
Well, go ahead. Let others speak first. I've got something to say on that too, but let the others go first.
Rukiye, that's long.
Honestly, I don't know how to deal with this trauma. It is horrifying, and it's impossible to deal with this trauma as an individual. You can't overcome this trauma as an individual. Only with the group, community, stick together, whole world come together, support each other, and stop the China ongoing genocide. Then you can deal with this trauma. Without that, it's impossible.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kilgour, did you have a comment?
Well, I'm sure you all know this, that the United States House of Representatives passed a bill on the goods made with forced labor, and they passed it, I think it was almost unanimous. It's now before the Senate in the US, but it would basically bar, as I understand it, any goods coming from East Turkistan or Xinjiang, and because unless they could prove that they were not made with forced labor, or And so that's something that Canada should do. And I think that I'm encouraged to think that a number of countries are going to do this now. We've got a new administration in the United States, which seems to understand what's going on in China. I'm delighted that the new administration has said that it's a genocide going on in Xinjiang, as did the previous one. And I think the world is. The democratic nations of the world are going to have to combine and speak with one voice and have one set of laws that apply to goods coming from China, particularly from Xinjiang.
We do have a few questions in the chat. So the first question was, why is there no sanction from Canada as of right now?
You want me to speak to that one? Oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
No, you can speak about that.
Well, it's a long story, and it's Jonathan Manthorpe, The Claws of the Pandas book sets it all out probably as well as anybody does, and he points out that historically a lot of Canadian missionaries were in China, and then when President Prime Minister's father recognized the government of China, a lot of those people were diplomats, and they gave the benefit of too many doubts to the government of China. And now we're, as you all know better than I do, we now have a Xi Jinping who's, I think, significantly more totalitarian and less interested in human beings and human dignity than any of the leaders certainly probably since Mao. And our government doesn't seem to understand how strongly Canadians, as I said earlier, 90% of us feel about this. And I think they're starting to get the message now that they can't continue to think that Xi Jinping has anything but malevolent attitude towards, just as bad attitude towards Canadians as he does towards the Uyghurs and so many other communities in China. Falun Gong, of course, is an example, but the government of China is significantly worse now than probably any government we've had since Mao.
Thank you. Another question that we have, what can we do to help Uyghurs? Maybe they're asking from just a citizen perspective or maybe a student, I'm not sure. So what can we do to help?
Can someone else speak to that?
Bahtiyar, do you want to say something or you want me to say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think the question asked by the individual, so as an individual, what should we do? I would like to suggest that, of course, we have to boycott made in China goods, because most of the goods are made in China. The cottons, 80% cotton of China produced by the Uyghur slave labor. And so when it is directly affect the consumers right now, not like other genocides, that what's happening over there. And for example, the goods made by Jewish slave labor was not directly maybe affected to the consumers because they didn't know. But right now we know that when we buy the cottons made in China, it may be made by, for sure, not the maybe, of course, made by Uyghur slave. So like you wearing that, imagine when you wear the hairs, that the wigs, like some women buy wigs, and that was made by the Uyghur slaves' hairs, Uyghur prisoners in the concentration camps, that hair. That woman might be tortured, that woman might be like when you see the BBC News, she was raped, maybe she was killed before shaving her hair. So that hair you are wearing. So how do you feel when you wear like that hair, the wig, and you're wearing the clothes that made by those victims? How do you feel? So imagine this. That's why each time when you buy the made in China goods, just to think about the Uyghur slaves, boycott made in China. We know that it's a very difficult right now to stop in the border those made in China goods, because it's very difficult to supply chains that differentiate that was made by the Uyghur slaves or made by other people, paid by Chinese workers or somewhere else, because China is cheating too, because they're gonna change it to tag, maybe they're gonna put made in Bangladesh or something, like they always do that. So it's a very difficult in the border to stop those goods, but we have to try our best and to stop the buying the made in China goods. That's the one thing as an individual, as a consumer, you can do it. And another things, we have to boycott China's Winter Olympics. Of course, Olympics is not, it is good saying that's promoting peace to the world, but it is happening in China where it's happening genocide right now. And I don't know those athletes right now, they would like to go to Olympics, and that Olympic committee that's asking the government, they're resisting that we don't boycott, but this is promoting peace and why we're gonna divide the world. But China dividing the world, they implementing genocide and they violating the peace. They destroying the more than 20 million Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims peace. So what do you think about how could you feel comfortable when you go and perform? And because our athletes, I'm talking about the Canadian athletes right now, it is for the other athletes, the other countries athletes too. Canadian athletes or any other country's athletes, they are our pride. They have to inspire their nation, and they represent our country. And when they go there, perform, and while the genocide ongoing in that place, we don't feel proud. We feel shame. Mm-hmm. So this is horrible, and that's why we don't want our athletes going to there, and we want to boycott Winter Olympics. As an individual, you can do that. You can join our organization's protest, or you can give protest speeches, or you can send a letter to your MPs to boycott Winter Olympics, and you can do this thing. And another thing, of course, always you can look for your MPs, speak with your politicians, talk about the Uyghur cause, and raise affairs, raise those awareness. And not only, everybody know right now what's happening over there, but still is China is denying the genocide. They're creating so many fake news. They say this is not happening, this is Western story, the American story, Americans and the Western people, they created the story. This is not about the Uyghurs. Why they should create the story, since we have so many eyewitnesses. We have more than 1 million Uyghurs and Uyghur diaspora. Each one Uyghur at least lost more than one or two family members in concentration camps. They could not contact. Myself, I know more than 30, my relatives were arrested, disappeared. So if you calculate it in this way, more than 3 million people are disappeared. We are the witnesses here. Still people, the Chinese government say, no, nothing happened. We're sending them to school. So why we couldn't contact with our relatives? My cousin was killed in 2018. He's stepped in the Chinese concentration camps and killed. Is that the school? So this is crazy. We have a witness. More than 1 million people in Uyghur diaspora can be witness, and Chinese cannot deny this. So please write a letter to your MPs, speak with them, and put pressure to Canadian government, be tough on Chinese government on this issue, and put sanction, Magnitsky Act, economic sanction, stick on our allies, Western allies, and other governments too, Muslim countries too. So this is very important.
Here, here, here. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. I mean, I don't think you lose anything into just writing an email or writing a letter to your MP. Worst case, they're not going to answer, and that's all. So everybody who is listening to this, please write to your MP, and you don't lose anything trying. So another question that we have is, are there women's organizations looking at this issue, or do you know any women's organization that is looking at this issue?
I don't know.
You want?
Do you know? I don't know women's organization. talking about this issue. I think this is not only the women's organization should look for. This is beyond the humanity. This is for all human, not only for women. So everybody should care about this issue. This is a genocide. This is not, and it's not a women's issue, but women's issue is your human rights issue too. But this is more than human rights right now. It's bigger than human rights. So everybody should care. That's why I never specifically look for some women's organization for this issue.
That's right. And we do think about women when we think about sexual assaults, but there are also a lot of male victims. So that's right. I think we should all work together. Another question that we have, when we go to a store, is there any way to determine whether the items we buy are made from slave labor?
For example, when you're going to the Muji, that store, they made all the cotton t-shirt made in Xinjiang. That was very clear. You should not buy that. And there's most of the made in China cotton product was made by Uyghur slave labor. Because the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, they find out more than 83 Chinese manufacturer was using more than 80,000 Uyghur women in inland China. And we had inside the East Turkistan, there's so many camps, the camp slave laborers, forced laborers too. So mostly those cotton made in China was made by those Uyghur slave laborers. That's why. For me, I protest any kind made in China because I don't know, since I cannot differentiate that was paid Chinese worker or Uyghur. So I don't know until China stop this genocide or stop this forced labor. I don't buy Chinese products. That's it. I don't have to differentiate,
Thank you so much. And just one last question that we have here is, why is there not much talk about Uyghur organ harvesting? Because we did hear about the Falun Gong, but I don't think the Uyghur organ harvesting is heard about as much. So why is that?
Well,
Can we talk about it?
David? I'm speaking tomorrow at a conference at McMaster University, and they tell me they've got 769 doctors lined up to listen. So I will be talking about Uyghur organ harvesting tomorrow, and of course about Falun Gong and other organ harvesting too, and trying to get the doctors to take a much stronger stand to pressure the Canadian government to pass a law saying that you cannot go as an organ tourist to China, where there's all likelihood that you'll be getting the organ of a Falun Gong or a Uyghur. And in fact, I'm sure you all know that the first organ transplants pillaging was done in the East Turkistan part of the country. In 1995, Dr. Toti was forced to go to a field and to take the organs from a living person, a Uyghur. So it goes back, the first record we have of it happening was in 1995. And who knows how many, in the horrible situations now with the COVID, how many Uyghurs have been killed for their organs in the camps or dragged away. I'm sure you all are aware of the fact that at Urumqi, there's a sign in the airport telling people to go in the speedy line, the organ transplant line. And Ethan Gutman has been writing about this, is speaking about this. And there was I think you all will know that there was a program on Radio Free Asia recently describing this and how passengers land in the capital, they go through the fast line, they go and some poor, undoubtedly Uyghur is killed, and his or her organs are flown back to probably to Shanghai where the patients are waiting. But it's mindless. It's mind-boggling to think that this kind of thing could be happening today anywhere in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it has been an hour and a half, so I will be wrapping it up. Thank you to our guest speakers who joined us today, Mr. David Kilgour, Mrs. Rukiye Turdush, Mr. Bahtiyar Semseddin, and of course, Mrs. Zumret Dawut, who left due to personal reasons. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, sharing advice to our fellow viewers. And if you do have any more questions, please write to us email us, contact us. Our website, our social media, and our email address is all in the description box below. If you wish to donate, volunteer, or even just help on a project or maybe collaborate on something, please contact us. Our contact email is in the description box. So thank you so much for today, and
thank you.
we
You
will
did a
see you.
terrific job. A terrific.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
did a good job.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
not emotional like us.
It's hard.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you,
time.
David. Thank you so much. It's very nice to see you today.
Bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye bye.